Hey, what's up, guys? Over here. So today we have another round of Sweet Baby Inc. related controversy, and this is a very big story. So it has been reported that Sweet Baby has finally fired its controversial employee, Chris Kindred. This is a report made by Master of the TDS through the Gothic Therapy channel. They claim they talked to an insider who has shared news that Chris has been fired by Sweet Baby, and despite the fact that he has Sweet Baby still in his LinkedIn profile, there are archived versions of his Instagram that show his previous employer as Sweet Baby Inc. And in this report, the insider claims that it wasn't just gamers who wanted Chris fired from Sweet Baby, it was actually his own co-workers who were pushing CEO Kim Belair to fire Chris Kindred because they viewed Chris as a major liability to the company and just their own everyday life in the industry because he brought so much continuous negative attention to the company. And that really checks out because in this interview that Kim did 2 months ago that was uploaded recently on the XOXO Festival YouTube channel, she outright confirms what a lot of people already suspected, and that's the fact that Kim and the company did not want to get discovered by gamers. They wanted all the recognition from inside the industry, but they did not want to get discovered by the people who are supposed to be enjoying their products, gamers themselves. And with Chris, he really was their worst nightmare in this regard because they didn't want to get discovered, but he was constantly making very aggressive and unhinged tweets that would bring negative attention not only to him, but the whole company as well. And it really all began with this post right here. Okay, despite what Kim claimed in her previous interview there, it wasn't just alt-right people and 4chaners who discovered Sweet Baby and started a one-sided harassment campaign. At the time, there was only whispers of Sweet Baby earlier this year, but then everything changed with this thread right here from Twitter. Chris Kindred making this whole thread trying to direct his 15,000 followers to falsely report Cabrutus Rambo and his Steam group, Sweet Baby Inc. detected, which at the time was a very small Steam group with only a few thousand followers. And the irony will never be lost on me that they call this harassment, creating a Steam group that is just a curation list of games that they publicly listed on their own website. That was not only harassment, according to Chris Kindred, it was something that got under their skin. It made them scared and nervous because people were now learning what games they were a part of. Like, wouldn't you be proud of the games you worked on? But instead, he directs his followers to falsely report not only the Steam group, but also the personal accounts of Cabrutus, which is just completely unhinged. And at the time, there was a couple responses Sweet Baby could have done to help remedy the situation because this is how millions of people discovered their company and their ties to the industry. They could have, number one, just ignored this whole thing. That would have been the best route. But even if Chris comes out and says all these things, there was a much better choice of options they could have done to save a little bit of face at the time. Kim should have fired him right then and there. And I think that would have stopped a lot of the bleeding. Would it have completely absolved any sort of negative attention to Sweet Baby? Absolutely not. But it would have given them a much better first impression. This was the first impression of Sweet Baby. This employee trying to start a harassment campaign and suffering no consequences for it. So it shows that they're tolerating this kind of stuff at Sweet Baby. And I think that's why people rallied so hard against them, and including giving support to people that were dealing with Sweet Baby, including Cabrutus himself, who would blow up overnight because of this, and the Steam group would get into the hundreds of thousands of followers very quickly and would lead to other offshoots of it like DEI detected, which is now expanding just beyond Sweet Baby. It's looking at all the DEI in the industry as a whole. This didn't just end with Sweet Baby, it expanded into the entire industry and all of the wokeism going on throughout it. But that wasn't the only tweet that Chris Kindred would get in trouble for. Only a few weeks after blowing up Sweet Baby, they would make this tweet saying, "Toriyama gave us the best and worst black characters in anime in the same series. It took range to do that." So for context, this tweet was made less than 24 hours after the passing of the legendary Akira Toriyama was publicly announced. And I can't tell you how satisfying it was to see basically the collective of social media just rain fury on this guy for this tweet. This was so in bad taste, completely disrespectful, insinuating that he was a racist right after his passing was announced publicly. Like, it is awful. And people just dunked on this guy. And believe it or not, he was actually temporarily suspended on Twitter. He would get his account back, but was still locked out for a week. So then, while they were locked out for a week, they would return exactly 1 week later and continue making these inflammatory tweets that would blow up in their own face. Saying this, picking up on the Cabrutus harassment campaign, saying they're just writing fan fiction at this point. The group still should be taken down, by the way. If not for the conspiracies, then definitely the Nazis. They're doing phrenology in there. So what he's saying is that Cabrutus, a Brazilian man, is a Nazi, which is a very interesting strategy back then. And also, they still wanted people to take down the Sweet Baby Inc. Detected Steam group, and they called them a bunch of conspiracy theorists, which is really crazy because they were just pulling information from your own website, and somehow that's a conspiracy. But of course, like a lot of the supposed conspiracies that are pointed out by people like Chris, the conspiracy turned out to be true, and all these connections Sweet Baby has to the industry. But then, the next day, Chris would make another tweet that would blow up in his face and in Sweet Baby's, this time calling out Asmongold, saying, "That's crazy, isn't one of these people isn't this person an active participant in the harassment campaign?" Referring to the criticism of Sweet Baby. Of course, there's no harassment campaign. The only one that exists here is Chris Kindred's harassment campaign, trying to get people falsely taken down. And again, this would blow up in their face because what did you think was going to happen? You're publicly calling out Asmongold and claiming he's doing a harassment campaign. He is going to respond. He's going to farm you for content. Like, how did you not know this was going to backfire so horribly? And now you give him a reason to once again talk about you and your company in front of his audience of millions. And of course, that trickles down into other channels who are talking about it. Again, bringing millions of eyes to your company in a negative light. And it's all thanks to tweets like this. And Chris Kindred wouldn't be done. Right around this time, they would also call the employers of Smash JT. Yes, he would contact the employers of a YouTuber who was critical of him and Sweet Baby Inc., which of course, again, would backfire extremely badly. And once again, members of the gaming industry or the gaming scene contacting people in the personal lives of their critics, it's just a very strange phenomenon. But looking at all those things, you can look at each event I just shared, and I think every single one of them was grounds to terminate the employment of Chris Kindred. Like, there's a reason why things went so badly for Sweet Baby, and Chris played a very big role in all this, and it just calls into question several things. Like, number one, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? What was the final act that made the CEO finally fire Chris? Like, which one of those events or something behind the scenes that was totally different? Like, who knows? And on top of that, it just shows that there is literally no accountability in the gaming industry. You think about other companies like Kotaku, right? You have people like Alyssa Mercante calling game developers dickheads for defending themselves publicly, and nothing happens. Nothing ever happens if you're associated with some sort of a woke network or company. And same thing with Chris. I mean, it took all of this for someone to lose their employment with Sweet Baby. Like, what else would he have to do to get terminated? And it seems like there's a mountain of evidence there, but still, it took so long for something to finally happen. And also, there's some questions about when this happened, too. So based on that speech that Kim Belair made, it was uploaded to YouTube a few days ago, but the actual speech itself was made back in August. And you can see on their team slide, you can see Chris is still there. So out of their 16-member team, he was still listed there, but it leads to really two conclusions. If he has been terminated, either they were trying to cover up their tracks with this right here to not bring attention to his firing, or he was fired sometime over the last couple of months. That's really the only two realities here if he was actually fired. And to go a bit further into that, it's a very weird position to be in if you're the CEO of this company. I mean, first of all, you should have fired him a long time ago, but you get to a point where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, where if you fire him, yes, it's in the best interest of your company. It'll help with your PR. It'll show some accountability. It'll make the space less toxic. But also you're admitting defeat, and you're basically giving all of your critics a win. And that's what happened anyways, because people would eventually find out at some point, and that's what's happening now. So it really put Kim in a corner for a while, but she put herself in that corner by not acting quickly with Chris Kindred's employment at the company after he started so much crap on the internet. But overall, this is definitely a reap what you sow moment. People accuse me of using that all the time, but yeah, I mean, how else do you describe what happened here? You really do reap what you sow. If you act like this publicly while working for a company, they should take some action against you. And I think a lot of people are getting satisfaction out of seeing some accountability over at Sweet Baby, and nobody feels sorry for Chris Kindred based on everything we just saw. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. Another round of Sweet Baby Inc. related drama. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comments section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.